there's almost like a factory of muftis in the world. Too many factories, I'd say. Yeah. And the biggest problem of that is, and they all know this. Nobody wants to address this, but I hope you're gonna put this on camera. In fact, there are these religious people who say, "Oh, we don't have TV in the house." I'm thinking, you got TV in your pocket. In 2003, there was Dr. Ghazi from Pakistan, from Islamabad University, who visited, and I spent 10 days with him, and he's an awesome person. May Allah give him Jannat al-Firdaus. Those 10 days had a big impact on me. It was one of the things I asked him. I asked him a lot of things. I was driving him up and down 10 days. And I think he fixed me up a bit. So, when Farsi came in, there was a, oh, we're losing Arabic. But when the Urdu came in, oh, we're losing Farsi. And now English comes in, oh, we're losing Urdu, right? I don't know, we might start speaking Chinese next because the China takes over the world. Maybe that might be the next thing, right? So my name is Hasan Ali. I was born in the UK, raised in the UK. I've studied in traditional Darul Ulooms for about 9 years. Then I became Imam in Turnpike Glen Mosque in London. After that, I worked in Yusuf Islam School for about 3 years. The secondary school, Bronsbury College for Boys. Then I taught at Ibrahim College for a few years. In between there, for the last 20 years, I've been working on my own syllabus for children, but many adults have benefited from it as well. Safar Academy syllabus. We've been working on that for almost 20 years now, and I go throughout the world and do lectures. So, to be honest with you, I was thrown in the deep end. My father, rahimahullah, I have a lot of du'as from him today, but at that time I never understood. And he threw me into Dewsbury. I thought, you know what, to get my life again, I better study here, right? So I was going to leave after Hibs. Before that, there's a long story I don't want to go into, where it was local maktabs, and I'm speaking Bengali, the teacher speaking Punjabi. We have a language problem. We have all sorts of problems in between. But then when I go to Dewsbury, where I first studied, I finished the Hibs. I was going to leave, but then my friends told me, "Well, you'll be on the streets if you leave because you don't know Arabic." So I said, "Okay, let me give Arabic a try." So I gave it a try. Then I loved it. Then I stayed there. First it was really my father just telling me, "Just get in there and start learning." But later on, even if somebody came to beat me out of there, I would never leave. So I finished 9 years. I went so Dewsbury 4 years. Went to Nottingham. There's a Darul there. Went there for 4 years. Mullah Kamal Sahib Madrasa. Then 1 year I went to Bangladesh and I finished off there. After that, I actually did some college studies, and then I did my MA in education psychology between 2004 and 2006. Each one I studied. Okay, so Dewsbury, I missed the punctuality and the system. They had a very good system. Everything was clockwork. You know, day in day out, you are progressing, and everything was on the dot with the system that they had. It was brilliant. I think that was a brilliant time. Nottingham was a lot more relaxed, but I mean they did have the study times on time, but it was a bit more relaxed. But the thing I miss about Nottingham most, and I'll miss for the rest of my life, is Mullah Fadl Rahim. He was my greatest teacher from Oldham. May Allah give him Jannat al-Firdaus. And Bangladesh, what do I miss from Bangladesh? Should I say the food? um, Bangladesh actually, Bangladesh was a new eye opener because there are some really good ulama there that are unknown, and I came across some people from the awliya of Allah that blew my mind in Bangladesh. One of them was Godfrey, rahmatullah alayhi, which a lot of Bengalis listen to this will know. Mullah Nuruddin Godfrey, an absolute, out of this world kind of person. So many karamat and so many things. These are hundreds and thousands of people, talking about his karamat and so on. And I've met him, visited him, and so on and so forth. So that's something I won't ever forget. Okay, so the thing was, I've got, alhamdulillah, this obviously Allah Azza wa Jal gives you whatever is in your mind, and one of the things I've always been interested in is to read about everything. I like to read, you name it, I'll put my eyes into it and I'll start reading about it. I've got this thirst of looking at something in a universal way. I don't like to look at it in a single sort of, a single sort of narrow-minded way. Everything has got so many different, ways of looking at it. I mean, if you look at a piece of wood, you might think, well, it's just a piece of wood. No, but it's not. You talk to the people who know about wood, they'll tell you about the types of wood, they'll tell you about the density, they'll tell you about how it grows, how long it'll stay when you make something, how you can cut it, how you shouldn't cut it. And there's so much information out there and everything. So anyway, getting back to the psychology thing, is that psychology was one of those things I was always interested in, because I was interested in the soul, in the inside of a person, how a person thinks, and so on and so forth. So in 2003, there was Dr. Ghazi from Pakistan, from Islamabad University, who visited, and I spent 10 days with him, and he's an awesome person. May Allah give him Jannat al-Firdaus. Those 10 days had a big impact on me, because one of the things I asked him a lot of things, because I was driving him up and down 10 days. And I think he fixed me up a bit, because as a young sort of graduate, you have all these kind of, I think we inherit a lot of baggage from some of our teachers, who teach us. I mean, they're brilliant people, don't get me wrong, they know the hadith and all that, but in terms of the world, some of them might even believe that the world is flat. You get me? So you kind of, honestly, I'm telling you experience, like you're there in a hadith of Bukhari, and then you realize that you've had a 45-minute debate with your teacher, and then he thinks the world is flat, and you think, okay, okay, you know what? Let's pass that one. Okay, you know what? That's fine. That's fine. Yeah. So you don't want to get into this. So, but they're brilliant people in other areas, of studies. So, Dr. Ghazi said to me, because I had a choice. I could have done MA in Islamic Studies. I could have done it in history, general history, and I could have done it in psychology, education psychology. So I asked him. I said, which one should I do? So he said a wonderful thing. He said that you've already done Islamic studies in madrasa. All you're going to do is learn a few English terms. That's all you're going to do. Then he said, in terms of history and the other one, he said, which one's the most difficult one for you? So I said, psychology is going to be the difficult one. He said, well, go for the difficult one. He said, अगर हर मुसलमान हर आसान काम करता जाएगा तो मुश्किल काम कौन करेगा? He said, if every Muslim does, all the easy works out there, then who's going to do the difficult ones? He said, go for the difficult one. I thought it was brilliant. His advice was brilliant. I went for the education psychology, and then how it's impacted my da'wah. It's impacted a lot. I think my mind changed a lot when I did the course. Just to give an example, I thought that if I can do something, then everyone else should be able to do it. That's what most people think. That how come we can't do it? It's so simple. Can't you just do it like this? But what you don't understand is that our brains work different, our emotions are different. Like for example, some people hear the word exam and they freeze. Their brain just stops functioning because of the pressure of thinking they might fail. Yeah. Whereas give me an exam, I'll sit it. There's no problem. Now because of that, I would have been a teacher before my education psychology, thinking, how dumb is that student? He couldn't do that. But then when I did the education psychology, you start studying groups of people, look at the studies, and you start thinking, you know what? That's bad of me. That's been really bad of me. Where just because I can do it doesn't mean they should. But I mean, there's certain things I'm not good at. Like you give me DIY work, I'll mess it all up, big time. Yeah. I'm good at the mental kind of skills, but I'm not good at the physical skills. Whereas some people, you give them DIY, or you give them something, they'll do like a piece of cake. But then you give them a lecture, they'll freeze. You give me a lecture, I'll be fine with it. So everyone's created different, and you appreciate people's minds differently, and people, how they work, how they think. I mean, there's so much I learned. And when it comes to dawah, what it's done is that it's made me know that every individual, every community, every class of people you come into, they're all got this worldview which is made up of the things that they went through. And that's what makes them. So the moment they ask you something, it reflects their worldview, part of the worldview. And it gives you a picture of their history, but it also puts you in a position to talk to them on their level. Okay? Because I think part of the problem of people who give dawah is not to sort of understand the person asking you, but just take it from a book and apply it to everyone. Like these days when you got the, like, the fatawa or muftis that are, there's almost like a factory of muftis in the world. Too many factories, I'd say. Yeah. And the biggest problem of that is, and they all know this, nobody wants to address this, but I hope you're gonna, put this on camera, and take this out, is that you can't look at a 100-year-old fatwa, 250 fatwa, 50-year-old fatwa, and look, and a person comes and asks you a question, you say, okay, yep, I looked at the fatwa, yeah, that's what it says. That's not what fatwa is. This is a person, let's say, for example, somebody comes and their mother's ill or something, and they probably need to inject her with something that might not be halal or something. You got to look at this person, you got to look at the life, you got to understand the mother, you got to understand, is there alternate medications, you got to try and look into the field of medicine, you got to try and see if there's anything else. And if that's the only option, then of course it's going to be halal for them. But you know what? You can't just go to fatwa book and say, yeah, this is haram, is this. You can't. You gotta take in everything else, because that person that's come to you, they might be hanging on the deen, or they might have a very bad religious experience somewhere, and you got to play it with them, so that end of the day, look, you tell them not to do something, but then if that makes them go away from God, you made them commit a greater crime. So sometimes it's better to get them to do something which is not right, but then but as a means of that, you have greater good coming later on. Now these things, you won't get them just by doing an iftar course. You need to understand people, their minds. You need to understand people's backgrounds. See, again, with what I've said before, this is one of those questions where you have to analyze it from many angles, right? People leave for all sorts of reasons. There are so many reasons why people leave Islam. But one of the key reasons why people leave Islam is because they never had a good grounding when they were young. That's, if you cut this cake, however you want, most born Muslims who've been born into a Muslim family, they leave Islam because they never had a good grounding when they were young. Either because they never had a good Maktab system, they never had a good teacher, they never had good parents, as in parents who grounded their Islam, right? Or what's happened is they overgrounded it, right? So that's another problem. So either they never grounded it, or they did too much. They turned into concrete. You're supposed to be soil, not. It's not supposed to be slippery as water. It's not supposed to be hard as concrete. It's supposed to be in between, like soil. Okay, so people who've had it really tough, like Islam's been imposed on them, they will detest it. And people who have had no grounding in Islam, as in they've had a liberal kind of life, they've had no real attachment. So they fly off, right? So those are the two sort of key reasons why born Muslims might. Now, people who came into Islam later on in their lives, there are many other factors that might make them, leave Islam. One of them, again, is that they came to Islam because of a wow factor, or because of some little element that they saw. But again, nobody was there to ground them in Islam and give them the companionship and the understanding, because understanding comes over a period of time. You can't just understand Islam in one day like this with just a quick chat or a quick internet thing. You can't. And the key thing, like if you look at the Sahaba were Sahaba because they were companions, and they became like that because they spent sitting, standing, eating, resting, walking, traveling with the Prophet ﷺ. And they molded their behavior according to him. Why? Because of the close companionship. That's where the deen is. That's where the real religion is. Where you've got a lack of that, people will sort of leave. Now, the other stuff you're saying about emotional, psychological, there are many reasons. Like, it could be because there are cultural reasons. There could be people who are trying to sell him a version of Islam which is not really Islam, whether it's because of cultural problems, social problems, whatever it might be. It makes people sort of, vomit out the type of Islam they've been given. Sometimes it's because of, questions and doubts that they've come across during college, university. And again, what the key thing I would say to anyone out there who listen to this is, go and take these people to knowledgeable people who know how to talk to them on an educational level, without sort of patronizing them, without putting them down, without mocking them. Like, to seriously sit there with a nice academic discussion, someone who knows probably how to talk to them. When I say on their level, I mean from a philosophical point of view, understanding their terms, if they're coming from that, from a scientific point of view, if they're coming from that angle, from a modern perspective, if they're coming from that, understanding the real cultural sort of differences and from real Islam, what it was. I mean, there's people who hate Islam because they've been told that if they don't wear a hat, then they're not a Muslim, or they're not practicing proper Islam. I mean, why is that? I mean, okay, hat is important. Don't get me wrong. It's an important part of a Muslim and his identity. But that doesn't mean that if somebody for some reason they came across they went through life and now he wants to stay without a hat. I'm not putting the hat down. It's a sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. I understand that. But what I'm trying to say is that you've got to understand the background of some of these people, because they're coming. So some of them believe that, oh my God, arranged marriages is Islam. It's not. There are many different forms of marriages. Arranged marriage is one of them, right? But again, arranged marriages should never turn into a coerced sort of marriage where you've been forced to marry because they've decided and you're not the decision maker. That's never supposed to have happened. So there are so many factors that you can go through, but the core things I've said to you at the beginning. Look, Islam tells us to balance everything. There's no such thing as one extreme or the other extreme. You're always going to find, look, this is the principle in life. Allah said in the Holy Quran, وَوَضَعَ الْمِيزَانِ. He's given us a balance. Allah تَطْغَوْا فِي الْمِيزَانِ. Don't go over the balance. Now, look at eating, for example. You eat less, malnutrition is going to affect you. You eat too much, obesity is going to affect you. You eat in between, you're fine. Okay, even what you eat, the sugar levels have to be balanced, the oil levels have to be balanced, the salt levels have to be balanced, right? So everything is about balancing. This ummah has been known as ummatan wasata, right? It's a balanced ummah. Now, all of a sudden, the whole world now is full of internet, Wi-Fi, gadgets, electronic games, and whatnot. Especially when we talk about the Western world, in Britain, Canada, America, every household has got several gadgets inside, right? Now, in such a world, for you to raise your children and completely ban them or completely get blackout from this, I mean, you can do it, but I mean, it's your choice if you want to do it. But you better then be prepared for all the other sort of after effects that are going to come. If you don't allow children to watch any of these things, or I mean, again, it's people's choice, right? But the moment they find it, what are you going to do then? Let's say a relative's house, a cousin's house, a TV show. They'll see it on the friends' phones. What will happen to them when they come across it? So there's an Arabic saying, "Al insanu harisun ala ma muni'a." So when you prevent a human being from something, they have a craving for it. So the more you prevent them, the greater the craving is. Until, let's say one day, they become 16 or 18, they get their own pocket money, and they buy this stuff. Then what's going to happen that day when they get to that TV? They're going to forget, glassfuls. They're going to be taking bucket loads inside. They're going to be binge drinking those episodes. They're going to probably be diving to now. I'm not saying they all do it like this, but this is one of the things, right? If you can look, I know certain parents out there who've blacked out things, but you got to really play it very carefully. So you got to have a lot of understanding. You got to do a lot of explanation. You've got to talk to them, especially when they go into the relatives' houses, other houses when they have an exposure, and even then, I don't think anybody's ever been able to have a complete blackout. I don't think so. In fact, there are these religious people who say, "Oh, we don't have TV in the house." I'm thinking, you got TV in your pocket, right? You got YouTube that you watch yourself. You got clips that you watch on WhatsApp. That is a TV, my friend. Wake up. All these great scholars, whoever they might be, that might say, "Oh, I haven't got TV in the house." Why even saying that? I mean, that's like that 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 doesn't even make sense to me, because you're watching TV, but you're watching it on a smaller device. That's a 14 screen, but what you've got is a 14 screen, and it's the same thing. The pixels are smaller, but you're watching the same thing, right? So the thing is, it's unavoidable. So now coming to your question again, what do you do? Well, I'm of the opinion that you should have controlled. But when I say controlled, you should now this is now going to be depending on every family, every individual. It's going to be different case to case. In my house, Monday to Friday, no electronic gadgets switched on at all. Nothing. Right? You come, you do your homework, you play whatever games you have, physical games, nothing else. Finished. Only for homework you will use it. We use a laptop or something like that. Saturday, Sunday, they will have limited time to play, and that's it. There are certain times you play. Khalas. My son is almost 15 now. Since beginning of secondary school, he's been asking me for a smartphone. I'd never gave him a smartphone, but I always sat with him. I've explained to him why not. I told him the dangers. I told him what he might do with WhatsApp once he gets it, social media, the bullying, the wasting time, failing exams because of that, and a whole world of things that he doesn't need at this time. And studying is more important. Then I told him, I'll give it to you at 16. So I've had a good few conversations with him. Alhamdulillah, he's understood. All his friends have got smartphones, but this is where, okay, so some parents might say, okay, fine, this is one point where you've had a blackout, but not a complete blackout, because he does watch other things. We've got other tablets and pads in the house where he can use that. But when he gets to 16, I've said to him, I will share his passcode up until I believe that he's got enough taqwa in him that he can, save himself from the fitna of internet and Wi-Fi, because the Wi-Fi is like an open sewage, right? There's so many things out there coming from there. You're gonna get filth all over you. So this is one thing I would say to the viewers out there that I'm taking as a step. So I don't believe there should be any parents who give young kids smartphones without sharing the passcode. I think it's like giving them a weapon that they can cause damage to themselves, or giving them some drugs or something and saying, look, just keep it aside, don't do anything with it. If they're going to take it, you get me? Of course they're going to take it. Let's be straight up. Most parents don't even know Arabic. So you can't teach a kid Arabic if you don't know Arabic. You know Urdu, you know Bengali, you know some other language, Somali language, whatever it might be. Talk to them in that. Kids who grow up with an ability to speak two languages, their brains are much sharper than kids who only know one language. There are so many elements of a language that make you think differently. So a particular type of language, one language will have like the subject, verb, and object first. I went to the shop, right? Subject, verb, object. Another one will be uh, subject, object, verb. Like in Bengali, you say, Ami dukane gechi. So you have a complete different way. Now, what happens is the brain has to function in thinking different ways. The grammar of the language, it's a God's miracle. If you look at Noam Chomsky, he's one of the leading psychologists of the time. He wrote a piece, I think in the 1950s or something like that. I don't know when it was. One of his original pieces was that when he looked at language, in the psychological field, he said this, that you cannot explain it except it's a God's miracle on earth of how humans learn languages. Language is so much. I mean, your whole culture is actually based upon the language. Language inhibits in you certain characteristics of the people who speak it. It naturally comes with it. The behavior, the modes, the thinking, even the thinking. Subhanallah, it comes with it. Now, Arabic. Look, Arabic is our number one language, but the problem is that most parents don't know it. So how can you teach your children something you don't know? If you get books in and you teach them some letters and some words, that's as far as you're going to go, right? Batta, quack, 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 bakara, moo, 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 and that's it. You're going to stop somewhere because you don't know the language. Language is not words, numbers, and a few phrases. Language is, speaking every day. So if you can get your children to go to an Arabic school to learn Arabic, brilliant, do that. And then if you as yourself as a parent can learn Arabic, then brilliant, go and learn it and then incorporate it in your house. Yes. But if you don't know it, then stick to your native language. I mean, in any case, it's good to give your native language anyway to your kids, unless you decide at an early age that you're going to give them whatever language you want. You speak that. For example, in my house, I made my intention from beginning to speak to my kids in Arabic. I married an Indian Kenyan person who I believe would never go and settle in Bangladesh, right? Even I'm not going to settle in Bangladesh. My kids will never go to Bangladesh to settle there. They'll probably go there for a holiday, if that. So I knew that Bengali was not something that they would keep for life for a reason. Okay, family, talking to family, that's one thing. But then I thought, give them Arabic. So I spoke to them in Arabic from birth, and alhamdulillah, they speak full Arabic with me. They speak, I speak with them. But that's when you know the language. as a mother tongue, I think it's very important that you speak that with them. And what's happening, I think the viewers should know this, that parents are compensating their household language with English because they think either that the child is going to be, disadvantaged when they go to school, or maybe it's just easier just to speak the English at home. You're making a bad mistake, a very bad mistake, and every generation is watering down the level of English. Right? You got now something like like half of the words they say in some of our languages in English, right? मैं आपसे मैं आपसे English में talk करूँगा. Like what in the world, like what was that? That's neither Urdu nor English, right? And there's so many phrases like that. Even half the times they do these news reports, yeah. So many English phrases, sentences, entire sentences. मैं आपसे पूछती हूँ कि ये जो democracy है, how it works and how it is and how it is, and they're going to English, right? I'm thinking, what are you doing? Are you there for Urdu or are you there for English, right? But anyway, it's really important because the kids will pick up so many of your ancestral, I think, the behaviors and the morals that they had through the language. And it's important that you give that to them. Well, your question says one thing straight away, and it's true that unity is not uniformity. Like unity is not conformity. You don't have to conform to somebody else and then be unified on one platform. A lot of people have misunderstood this whole unity thing. Unity, like if you're looking for all Muslims to have the same beliefs, I'm talking not the core beliefs, I'm talking about everything else, like all the beliefs that we are allowed to have this difference of opinion. All our, ikhtilafat, or the difference of opinion, all get brushed aside and we all follow the same thing. It's never going to happen until the day of judgment. Never going to happen. Right? It never happened for 1400 years. And people out there are going to think, well, that's wrong. Why is our religion like that? Well, no, I'm sorry. You haven't understood our religion. Our religion is like the Judaic religion. It allows you to look at the text, and because there's multiple understandings of the same text, it allows you to have different opinions as long as it's within certain boundaries. So over the 1400 years, we've got hundreds and thousands of opinions. Some of those differ with others, not all of it. 85% the Ummah conforms to anyway together. There's only 15% of the religion that we actually have a difference. Like if you look at Salah, for example, the whole Salah, everybody more or less doing the same Salah. It's only the raising of the hands, whether you should say Fatiha loudly or not, whether you should say Amin loudly or not, whether you should read Fatiha or not, whether you should say Amin loudly or not, whether you should raise the finger like this or like that in the Salah. There's small bits, 15%, where we're disagreeing with. 85% of more or less everything we're doing is already unity. There's unity there. Now, for that 15% of unity, and then the funny thing is that when people say let's all unite, what every person in the room is saying is, let me get all of you lot to unite with me, right? And if everyone says the same thing, how on earth are you supposed to unite? That's not called unity. That's called your dictatorship. So unity actually means that we recognize that we have a right. This is I think the basic, that we have a right to have a difference of opinion. Like whoever I am speaking, I've already differed with you. Not that you've differed with me, but I've differed with you. It's a two-way process. So uh, if I'm expecting you to give up your views for me, then you have the right equally to say to me, I want you to give up your views for me. Now, end of the day, it's a battle where it's not going to get anywhere. So the best thing for us to do is you place your dalils in front of the other one, place your evidence in front of the other person. If after 5 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever it is, however long it takes you to place it, if they want to change their views, let them change their views. If not, then both of you should agree that we've got larger, objectives that unite us, and we need to stay united for the large objectives between us. And these small differences, let's both recognize we both have the right to differ, and we should both as Muslims respect one another. Any ijtihadi mas'ala, which means that any issue of the religion where Allah and His Messenger have allowed you to have a different opinion, then both sides, three sides, four sides have got the right to have a different opinion. I'll give you an example. I mean, this thing about taking photography and taking pictures or videos and so on, right? There's two different opinions. Like, I'm of the opinion it's fine, but there are scholars in the world who don't agree with this, and guess what? I respect them for it. I've had huge discussions with some of these scholars. They're very, clear on the text from what they quote from the Quran and Sunnah. I'm very clear on what I'm quoting from, not myself, but many ulama have quoted as well, so I'll present that. In the end, I'm very happy for them to not, introduce the media into their world for whatever reasons they're saying. That's fine, but I equally expect them to give me the same, same position and the same right as a Muslim. And if we can do that, because this is again ijtihadi masala, this is an issue where it's allowed for us to differ from the sources. So if we could, as Muslims, just do that much, that we recognize the areas where we're allowed to have different opinion, we recognize that the other party equally has a right as me to have a different opinion. We also recognize that, you know what, it's happening, it's gonna happen, fine, let's move on. And let's now talk about the bigger picture of things that both of us are united on. So for example, one of the big things that we miss out on is, look, our children are our children. They've got the future. There's schools. There's things that we need. There's halal. Let's say, for example, halal mortgages. Right? Everyone needs to get a house. These are bigger issues that go beyond your amins and beyond your little. These things between 1400 years. We've got people leaving the deen. Like, you asked me a little while ago. People are leaving the deen, man, and you're there talking about some little issue. It's like when Musa alayhi salam told them, "Idbahu baqara," slaughter the cow, and they're sitting there thinking, what color is the cow? What are you talking about the color of the cow? It's a cow is a cow. What are you talking about color? So you get the color. Then you say, oh, is it old? Is it young? Has it tilted the ground? Is it not tilted the ground? And you just make yourself, make it more difficult for yourself. Okay, so look, if somebody's gone through abuse, no matter what the nature is, you have to first understand the human side of it and the religious side of it. Some people in a religious authority commit abuse because of the power they have, not because God and the messenger ever allowed them to do that. I mean, they've got huge accountability on the day of judgment for what they've done, a massive one. If you want to sort of clear your mind as a victim of abuse, is to seriously come to the religion and first ask the question, where in the religion has God allowed this? Where has his messenger allowed this? And you'll find there's no space for it in the religion. Second is you start looking at, okay, if somebody has been a victim, then what does the Quran and Sunnah say? So you can see very clearly that Allah sides with the victims of abuse. It's all over the Quran, over the Hadith. Inna Allah ma'a sabirin. Allah is with those who are patient. He never said Allah is with those who do, kill, or those who do this. He never said that. He said ma'a sabirin, those who are patient. If you look in the hadith, you'll find it says there's no barrier between a victim, his curse, and God. There's no barrier. If they were to raise their hands and say, "Oh Allah, I've been oppressed," then there's no barrier between them. So again, it shows that Allah is siding with them. So you should know, as a victim of abuse, that Allah never wanted that thing to happen to you. Now, when when I say Allah never wanted that, you might have a question in your mind. Well, why did it then happen? Well, that's the human. That's where you have to separate. The human has a free will. So whoever abused you, he abused you because of his free will, not because of God's will. Okay, God's will on this earth is He's given a choice. So just as I can take a match, light it, and just drop it on this sofa, it'll burn. But that's my choice. If I decide not to burn that, I decide not to burn it. So if I did burn it, would anyone say, well, why did God allow that to happen? No, sorry, that was a human that decided, who had a choice in a scientific world to light a match and leave it in the wrong place and let it burn. That's my choice. I'm accountable for my choice. God's part in that was He said, he has allowed on the earth that whenever fire will catch onto elements it will burn and it will carry on burning. That's what God said. God's also allowed water to extinguish fire. Now, if God wants to stop the fire from burning, He can, and He has. And whenever He wants. Ibrahim alayhi salam was in the fire, never burned. Right? So when He wants to take away the the raw sort of nature of that element, he can do it. But sunnatullahi allati qad khalat min qabl. The Quran says that these are the laws of nature which God has set the world in, and he will leave it like that for 99.9% of the times. Sometimes he wants to do something extraordinary, he'll do it, but that's his choice, not your choice. So when it comes to humans abusing, God's given a choice to a human to either forgive, forget, or to go ahead and do something cruel. That's their choice. Now that choice, again, just like the match example, it's his choice, what he wants to do. He's going to be accountable for it. They're separate. But you can't now mix the religion and the human free will, or the God's will and human's will, and say, well, why did that happen to me, and therefore I want to leave Islam because, or I think that Islam's a horrible place to be in. Well, no, I'm sorry. That person, whatever he did, find me the text in the religion that tells him to do that. There are people who've been in a religious position, they've hit, they've been cruel, they're bullied, they've been racist, they've been very, very harsh on their students. This is, I'm sorry to say, this is very cultural. This is baggage they've inherited. Their culture very easily might call someone an animal and donkey or whatever. The village mentality. This is jahiliyyah. And yes, I'm sorry, but this person is religious, but has got elements of jahiliyyah still inside him, and that can happen. We've got the same in the Sunnah, where Abu Dhar al-Ghifari, he said to Bilal radiallahu anhu once, he said, "You son of a black woman." And immediately Bilal went to the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet said that, he said to Abu Dhar al-Ghifari, this in Sahih Bukhari, he said, "Innaka mru'un fika jahiliyyah." He said, "You're a man in whom the reminiscences of the ignorant days are still existent." So Abu Dhar al-Ghifari then fell to the ground, and he said, "Until Bilal doesn't put the sole of his foot onto my neck, I will not get up from here." You can see how humble he became after hearing this. But from the hadith, what we understand is that the Sahaba had to go through a phase where you're religious, you're becoming religious, but it's like when you're cleaning a room, you start off with the big bits first, right? So you start picking all the rubbish up first, then you're gonna start up, hoovering up or something. That's fine. But then, if you want to really clean the room up, a deep clean, you're going to have to go through all the top of the shelves and the cupboards and the little areas, and wipe them clean, right? Wipe the desk clean from the dust. Those finer parts only get cleaned up with a deep clean. So what happens is sometimes people become religious. They clean, but they don't have a deep clean. And that's where some of that bad habit has remained, and then the abuse happens, and may Allah forgive all of us. So look, I think the Maktab system is one of the most powerful systems of getting people's Islam, stabilized. What we've got in this country is an absolute gem. It's a blessing. We're blessed in so many ways. When you travel, you understand this. So countries that don't have maktabs, their children are growing up and they really don't know Islam, right? The maktab is a wonderful opportunity, I think, to give them religion at a young age. When they're ready for it, they're just taking it all in like a sponge, and they've got it for the rest of their lives. Okay, so the basic understanding of the maktab is there. That's very good. Countries where they have houses and places far away from one another, like America, Canada, it sort of is a bit of a challenge for them to have a maktab system like the way we've got in the UK. So what we've got in the UK and even Europe, Europe is suffering big time because they don't have no maktab system. So when we look at Europe, you find that Europe hasn't got that system, and they're suffering very badly. So maktab is a very important part. Now, whether it should be standardized or not, I mean, the thing is, everyone's got the right to have their own syllabus, their own ways of doing it, their own hours, their own modes. Things are going to always be different. So it's good to have, I think, difference, because it gives you variety then, and then you got a choice of where you want to go to. If every single chicken and chip shops was tasting the same, there'd be no point of it, right? So it's good that they've got a difference. But in terms of the other part, which is Arabic, should they incorporate it? I mean, look, Arabic is a language. And again, I think when we say Arabic, what we want the person to learn is classical Arabic, not modern Arabic. So one problem has been that you start to teach Arabic, but then really, in all honesty, you end up teaching them or going down the path of modern Arabic. And your children that you're teaching, they're not going to speak Arabic at home. They're not going to speak Arabic in their settings. It's not going to happen, even though it's our ideal thing that they do that. It's not happening. So therefore, they end up forgetting those parts. So it's a lot better to go through to try and get them to learn the classical Arabic, which is the Quran and the Sunnah and so on. Now, again, the problem there is that you need to have sufficient time. So every course that you do requires an amount of time and a particular audience. Every book that is written requires a particular audience. Now, when you get certain syllabi and you try to make students learn it, that syllabus, particular syllabus, has been adopted or made in a certain setting for a certain audience in a certain time frame, right? And when you take it out of that time frame, or when you teach it to a different audience, different setting, it doesn't work. You look at the Durusul Lughat al Arabiya, that most people, let's start learning Arabic. Madina Munawwara, Durusul Lughat al Arabiya. I mean, this book has been written for foreign students who have come from many parts of the world. They're looking at each other and thinking, who are you? Who are you? But we don't know how to speak to each other. Okay, let's start. So Yabani, Almani, like, are you Japanese? Are you German? That's what's been told there. It's about classroom, it's about chalk, it's about board, it's about this, because they want them to start, speaking Arabic in a setting of foreign students in Medina Munawwara, and they just want to get them to start kicking off with some speech. But we don't need that for our setting, right? And then there's jumps in the syllabus that happens in that particular book. By the time you get the second or third, you find huge jumps. Suddenly, there's all these sophisticated sort of forms of Arabic verbs that pop up, and then hadith and Quran is introduced, and you have a big jump, and that doesn't work. Now, thing is, should you teach Arabic? Yes, I think, but I think you have to be honest with the time you've got and the audience you've got. If you really can't get them to learn a language, which you probably don't have time for, most maktabs don't have time for that, then at least teach them straight off Quranic pieces or ahadith that they should learn the translation of and have an attachment to the religion, the morals, the guidance of the Quran, Sunnah. Certain ayats, just pick them up. There are many books out there that you can get that have focused on the Quran or on a hadith with translation. And if you pick those, then at least you give them something before they go. They won't be able to speak the language. They won't be able to converse in Arabic, but they at least have some attachment to the Quran and Sunnah. I think that's something that's achievable. If you can go higher than that, you've got more time, then please achieve it. Like some people have gone through teaching them grammar and other things. It requires a lot more hours. If you've got the hours, then go ahead, do it. But if you haven't, be honest with what you've got, because these kids are with you only till the age of 12 to 16 or something. They're going to be leaving. Okay. Urdu, the question about Urdu and teaching Urdu, look, I think those questions are only coming because the imams they employed, they really don't know English, straight up. That's the reason why. It's not because of the students or the parents or anybody else. It's not because of that. It's mainly because those teachers do not know English properly. Now you get certain cases where parents want their kids to do a subject of Urdu. That's separate. That's fine. I don't mind that. Like I said earlier on, that second language is always good that you teach that. Now, if you're doing Urdu as a spoken language, as a separate subject, that's fine. But if you're going to teach the whole of Maktab in Urdu, I think that's the only reason you're doing that is because those teachers are not capable of speaking English. It's their incapable element that you're trying to sort of fit around and trying to incorporate than anything else. And to be honest with you, give it 20, 30 years, it's completely going to be phased out. Already what we've seen in the last 10, 15 years is imams from abroad definitely are not being called in, right? There's like, I think less than 1% of masjids that are calling people from abroad now. That's stopped. But imams who've already been in masjids and are only spoken the traditional language or language from the Indian subcontinent, they're now sharing the job with an English-speaking imam. Okay, and what's happening now is that some of those imams have been told goodbye because the needs are changing. The community's needs are growing such that people now don't understand that language. And if you're going to sit there complaining, well, you're complaining in the wrong place, because Urdu, when it came in, it phased out Farsi. Let's be honest with it. So why are you lamenting about it? Because when was Urdu a holy language? Before that it was Farsi. And when was Farsi a holy language? Before that it was Arabic. So, when Farsi came in, there was oh, we're losing Arabic. But when the Urdu came in, oh, we're losing Farsi. And now English comes in, oh, we're losing Urdu, right? I don't know. We might start speaking Chinese next because the China takes over the world. Maybe that might be the next thing, right? But the thing is, why are you making that big issue? It's just a language. The one that we should be concerned about is Arabic because of the Quran, not because of Arabic per se. It's because our Prophet was Arabic, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and our Quran was revealed in Arabic. So that's holy. That's the only one you can say is holy for us as Muslims. The rest of them are just languages. फेवरेट टीवी शो यार ये मौलवी से आप पूछ रहे यार मौलवी से पूछ रहे यार favorite sports personality of all time Muhammad Ali. I like Muhammad Ali. Netflix or YouTube. Astaghfirullah what would you do if you didn't have to work tomorrow? I'd relax. Relax. That's it. That's the best thing about life. Recharge your batteries. Have a nice day. Stay at home and relax. Are you a morning or a night person? Morning. Next one. Favorite English seerah book? Martin Ling's. I think it's called Muhammad or something. Okay. Most inspirational current living Islamic scholar. Current Islamic scholar. I think Shaykh Daddu really makes me, feel wow. That man is a living. I think he's a living example and an evidence for us of how our scholars were in the past. That's the amount of information he keeps in his head and just prints it out like a machine. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be? Maybe in the White House. Maybe. I mean, that's the best place you can be, right? You can do what you like in there, yeah? Maybe. Cake rusk or custard creams? Oh, easy. Not cake rusk, I tell you that. I had too many of those when I was in madrasa. We used to go and clean the toilets after that, you know what I'm saying? Like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how good a driver are you? MashaAllah. Like, if you look at my driving, it depends where I'm driving. If I'm driving in Bangladesh, then it's different, bro. Yeah? If I'm driving in England, then, there are cameras that are watching, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's just leave it at that, yeah? So, next one. What is one thing that annoys you the most? Annoys me the most would be probably a bad heart. Some people, they have bad hearts. They don't have good ways of seeing what you do for them or whatever. That annoys me. Life in 3 words. Live, love, laugh. If you could go back in history and spend one day with any scholar, who would it be? In history? Maybe Imam Bukhari. How long can you hold your breath for? I recently had a challenge, I think underwater. I think I went over a minute, or I think near a minute at least. Texting or talking? I'm an introvert, so texting is always more for me than talking. Although I lecture, people actually think that I'm an extrovert. I'm not an extrovert, I'm an introvert. I like it to myself. Favorite pizza and where from? Pizza is very bad for you, my friend. It's the thing that sits in your stomach, it doesn't digest, so out. I like pizza. I used to love it, I used to have it, but now over 40, gotta look after the belly. How do you like your steak cooked? I think just above medium is good. Yeah? Nice and juicy, succulent. Would you rather work 8 hours standing or 10 hours sitting? 10 hours sitting, man, come on. Okay, Haagen-Dazs or Ben & Jerry's? Yeah, a lot of sugar in both, man, but I think Haagen-Dazs, nice. What new technology will transform the future? That's a good one. What new technology will transform the future? I think when we've got robots as part of the world, if they ever get to that, that's going to be very interesting but dangerous time to look at. But when everyone sort of gets their own sort of individual robots, pet robots, I don't know, robots to take you to work, robots to do your work, or maybe we want to work at that time. Yeah. But I wonder what's going to happen to humans at that time. Maybe they're going to be so fat that they can't roll out of bed. So they're going to need a robot to lift them up and take them to the toilet. So that might be the case, but it's an interesting time because I don't think people will. People already with the gadgets and everything they've got, they've already got into a lot of problems between themselves. Like the more gadgets we get, the more problems. Like like even you look at something as simple as WhatsApp. You got people are causing more fitna with one another with WhatsApp. A lot of the differences and the breakups and things that are happening through WhatsApp. Although WhatsApp is also contributing to a lot of people come together. A lot of family that are not in contact, usually they're in contact. But at the same time, there's that much of breakups and fights and things. You give people, people used to wash their clothes before themselves. They used to do everything themselves. Now they've got the washing machine, they're still complaining. They've got the dryer, they're still complaining. They've got the dishwasher, they're still complaining. Now it's like, oh, who's gonna empty the dishwasher, right? Well, you in it. But anyway, people, you give them more gadgets and more things, technologies. They just getting more and more sort of. They're looking for the next thing they want. But is it improving their lives and making humans better? I don't know about that one. The most memorable year in your lifetime and why? Woo-hoo. I think it's the year I was born. Okay. Children in 3 words. Well, I think I say a phrase rather. You can't live without them, but you can't live with them. So one of the things I'd like to share with the viewers is I came across this quote, which many of the I think this deep quote that some scholar mentioned, which even Shah Waliullah rahimullah also said, is about Surah Fatiha. Why is Surah Fatiha known as the mother of the book? It's known as the mother of the book is because it has 3 major elements in it. And these 3 major elements make you as a Muslim what you are, and your whole life you're bound by it. And you better get these 3 things right. So Surah Fatiha, the first 3 verses, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, all praise to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, Him being the most merciful, most kind, and Malik Yawmiddin, Master of the Day of Judgment. Why? What are these 3? These 3 are to do with your iman, so your beliefs. Okay, so all Muslims have to get the beliefs right. Number 2, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in is your ibadah, is your worship and your connection with God through worship. And the rest of the surah, from Ihdina Sirat Mustaqim to Sirat Alladhina An'amta Alayhim, all of that is your suluk. It's the pathway you take, your behavior, your manhaj, your kind of way of sort of having a behavior with others, how you interact with others, how you interact with the world, with non-Muslims, Muslims, how, what is your group, what sort of people are you with, that whole thing of suluk, what kind of sort of line pathway you take, that's what it is. So now, if you look at these 3, they make up who we are. If you get these 3 right, you've got a lot of things in your life that are right. Your beliefs, your worship, and the pathway that you take. And there are many pathways, obviously, that we've got. And I hope the viewers out there will, first with Iman, to understand that Iman is actually something that is not taught in a lesson, but it's actually applied in life. And Ibadah is you and your Lord. That's your time with Him that you have to build. Personally, you have to do that. And Suluk is with people. So one is personal, one is with Lord, one is with the world. If you can get those 3 more things right, you've got a lot right.